All right, so a quick gut check, okay? Do you think being suspicious of everyone, as in assuming most people are lying, most institutions are corrupt, and most stories are spin, makes you harder to fool? See, most people who think of themselves as skeptics, well, they would say yes. It feels like armor to them. But here's the uncomfortable thing. See, when researchers actually measured this, they found something close to the opposite. See, across a data set of about 200,000 people in over 30 countries, the more cynical someone was, the worse they, well, tended to score on tests of cognitive ability and competence. Not better, worse. See, we just assume the cynic is the sharp one in the room, and that assumption is, well, itself the trap. So today what I want to do is show you why blanket cynicism is a blindfold, not a shield, what it's actually doing to your brain, and the specific move manipulators use to walk right through it. Hi, I'm Alan Stafford, and I help people think clearly in a noisy world, and this is Think Sharper. All right, before we get into it, I've got two quick caveats for you because, well, what I'm about to discuss is easy to misread. See, I'm not telling you to be naive. Questioning claims, checking sources, noticing when you're being sold to, that's the whole project of this channel, and it's actually good. The thing on trial today, though, is blanket cynicism, the reflexive across the board assumption that everyone is lying. That, my friend, that's not skepticism. See, as you'll see, it's almost the opposite of skepticism. And if you've felt yourself sliding in that direction lately, and honestly, given the last few years, who hasn't? This video is for you. And hey, if you don't see this in you, but a face just popped into your head, someone sharp who's gone a little scorched earth on trusting anything, do them a quiet favor and send them this. No lecture, no we need to talk stuff, just share it and let it do the work. All right, so let's start with why suspicion of everything backfires. You see, real skepticism is effortful. You have to put effort into it, which means gathering information, weighing it, and updating, and saying things like, I don't know yet, and then doing the work to find out. Now, blanket cynicism skips all of that, okay? It hands you a single answer to every question in advance. It's all lies, for example. And notice what that does? It's not more thinking, it's just a way to stop thinking. A closed door you call a conclusion. So here's the part that flips most people's intuition. You'd expect the trusting person to be the gullible one and the suspicious person to be the sharp lie detector. But the research on trust says it's backwards. See, in a series of experiments, people who scored high on general trust were actually better at spotting untrustworthiness. And that's because they stayed curious, kept reading the other person, kept taking in trust relevant cues. The low trust folks had already decided everyone's a thief, so they stopped gathering information. And once you stop gathering information, well, you can't tell the honest person from the con artist. You've pretty much blinded yourself in that case. See, trust, it turns out, doesn't mean gullibility, and cynicism, that doesn't mean discernment. And that creates a predictable hole, if you will, okay? If your worldview is everyone's lying, and then anyone who comes along and basically says, you're right, they're all lying, instantly sounds like the one honest person in the room. Your cynicism doesn't make you unpredictable, it makes you easy to map. See, a manipulator knows exactly which key opens you. All right, so now let's slip into your brain, so to speak, okay? Because there's a biological reason this spirals. See, living in a state of constant distrust isn't neutral. It's a low-grade threat state, okay? And we know a fair amount about pretty much what threat does to the brain. You see, the prefrontal cortex is the part that handles your slow, careful, top-down thinking. Basically, what it's doing, it's weighing evidence, holding nuance, and inhibiting your first reaction. Unfortunately, it's also the most fragile part under stress. Now, neuroscientist Amy Arnsten has shown that even mild, uncontrollable stress causes a rapid drop in prefrontal function while strengthening the amygdala and the brain's faster, more reflexive circuits. So, in plain terms, stress quietly flips you from thoughtful, reflective mode into reactive, gut level mode. And that switch, well, it's brilliant when there's a tiger, an actual tiger lurking around you. It's a disaster when what you actually need is to evaluate a claim. So the chronic cynic marinating in everything's a threat is running on exactly the wrong setting for the one job they think they're good at, judging what's true. And there's a second cost. High arousal, it narrows attention. And that's why people miss obvious things when they're in a panic. See, a calm observer notices the small inconsistency, the detail that doesn't add up. the tell. Well, the keyed up cynic, well, they're locked on to the threat they expect. They sail right past the red flags that a relaxed mind would catch, which sets up the part where someone uses all of this on purpose. So here's the move, okay? I call it suspicious mirroring. And once you see it, well, hopefully you can't unsee it. The fastest way to earn a cynic's trust is not to be likable or credible or right. It's to hate the same people they hate. Sound familiar? And this isn't armchair theory, okay? It's one of the more reliable findings in relationship psychology. In a set of studies, researchers found that discovering you share a negative attitude about someone bonds you to a stranger faster than sharing a positive one. So tearing down a common enemy creates closeness more efficiently than building something up. And there's two more details from that research that make it genuinely dangerous. You see, first, it builds an instant in-group, out-group line, such as us, the ones who see the truth, versus them, the sheep. And second, and this is the kicker, people are almost completely unaware it's working on them. See, when asked, they insisted that positive shared attitudes would bond them better. They never see the negative bond forming. So a bad actor leads with, hey, they're all lying to you, which to a cynic just sounds like someone finally being honest. And that's the gateway. And once the shared enemy bond is set, the specific unverified narrative gets walked right behind it. Things like, they're all lying, opens the door. And so here's what's really going on is what strolls right on through. And that's the whole trick behind the lone truth teller, who only ever appears once you've abandoned every traditional source. They're not selling evidence, they're selling belonging to people who just made themselves lonely. And this brings us to the cost nobody markets, which is cynicism feels independent. They say things like, I don't need anyone. I trust no one. I think for myself. But you see, in practice, it isolates you. And an isolated mind is a defenseless one, okay? Think about how you actually catch most lies in normal life, not alone, but socially. For example, a friend says, hey, wait, that doesn't sound right. See, someone in the group remembers the context you might have forgotten. Sources cross-check each other in this case. And that web of people is a pretty much collective immune system against being fooled. And broad cynicism basically quietly dissolves it, because if everyone's compromised, there's no one left to basically sanity check you. And the isolated, distrustful individual is precisely the easiest person to capture. See, the research on conspiratorial belief points in the same direction, okay? It's associated with low trust and a less deliberate, more reflexive thinking style, the exact state we've been describing. Now, what I want to be careful here is I haven't seen a clean study that cleanly proves algorithms deliberately target lonely cynics, so I'm not going to claim that one, okay? But you don't need a grand conspiracy for the mechanism to actually work. See, a recommendation system optimizing for engagement will reliably feed more of whatever keeps you watching, and outrage and confirmation keep cynics watching all the time. No villain required in this case, okay? See, the incentives alone are enough to pull an isolated, suspicious person in deeper. So the real danger sign is the shift from I doubt that claim to I doubt them and I believe my side. See, that's when skepticism stops being a method and becomes an identity. And an identity can't update. It can only defend itself. So if blanket cynicism is the failure mode, what's the actual fix? Well, it's not swinging back to trusting everything. That's just gullibility wearing a smile. See, the answer is the thing sitting in the middle, and it has a name in the research. They call it intellectual humility. It's the willingness to say, I might be wrong about this, show me, and then actively look. See, think of it as the calibrated setting between two broken extremes, gullibility, which believes everything, and cynicism, which believes nothing. Humility believes things in proportion to the evidence. And this isn't just a nice to have. See, people higher in intellectual humility are measurably better at telling real news from fake news and more likely to actually fact check a suspicious claim instead of either swallowing it or reflexively rejecting it. And in one set of studies with over 1,200 people, the more intellectually humble someone was, the more they investigated before believing. And that's the muscle here, not faster judgment, suspended judgment held open just long enough to check, okay? So here's a practical filter for the high arousal content designed to hijack you, okay? When something makes you feel that hot rush of, I knew it, that's the signal to slow down, not speed up. Ask 3 questions here. Question 1, what would I need to see to know this is false? So if the answer is nothing could change my mind, That's not a belief. You're in a cage there, my friend. Question 2, is this giving me evidence or just giving me an enemy? And the third question, who benefits if I believe this without checking? See, none of that requires you to be naive. It just requires effort and a little stamina, okay? Which basically conveniently is the one thing blanket cynicism was helping you avoid. Now zoom out because this was never really just about cynicism, okay? It's about a pattern you'll see everywhere. The mental shortcut that feels like rigor, but it's actually rigor's replacement, okay? Everyone's lying feels like the smartest position in the room, and it's precisely the position that asks the least of you and leaves you the most exposed. See, real thinking is more expensive than that, okay? It costs you the comfort of a preloaded answer, but the cost is the whole defense. The person who can sit in and say, I'm not sure yet, let me check, is almost impossible to manipulate because the manipulator's entire toolkit depends on you having already made up your mind. So here's the hopeful part to leave you with, okay? Earlier we saw how chronic distrust traps your brain in that reactive amygdala-driven gear, basically the opposite or the exact opposite of clear thinking. The good news is that setting, well, it's not permanent. See, those reactions feel like who you are, but they're really just well-worn paths in your head. And, well, you can build new paths. I broke down exactly how the actual neuroscience of rewiring your stress response in the next video titled, Your Old Reactions Are Paved Roads. Hey, go give your prefrontal cortex a fighting chance. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Think sharper. Stay sovereign.